WWE has a roster size problem and nobody wants to admit it. I'm Ben Allison here at Wrestling Republic, and over the last couple of months we've seen WWE and NXT crowds chanting things such as Tony fumbled at talents such as Ricky Sainz, Ethan Page, and now Rusev and Aleister Black. And in those cases, fair enough, AEW undoubtedly did fumble them. But if things continue the way that they are currently going, I'm worried WWE are about to fumble a lot more talents. Firstly, let's take things back in time a little bit and go to 2019, because 2019 was widely regarded to be the most stacked roster in WWE history, and by that I mean overly stacked. Practically nobody was getting the opportunities which they deserved, and this led to a lot of people on the roster being massively unhappy. And of course, there is no denying the actual creative in the company was absolutely rubbish during that time. I mean, we had the Roman Reigns dog food stuff. It was awful. But even with good creative, nobody in the world would have been able to manage that roster correctly because it was just way too stacked. And because of this, the roster morale went way down, and at the start of COVID there was the first mass release, and shortly after there was another 2 of them as well. Now of course, like I just said, COVID was the catalyst for these releases, but truthfully I genuinely think they would have happened anyway. So many people on that roster were asking for releases, asking to leave the company because they were not being utilized correctly. Plus, Vince McMahon was already putting out feelers about the potential sale of WWE. Yes, that's right, back in 2020. So I do think they were looking to cut costs wherever they could anyway. But back in 2019, the active roster on both Raw and SmackDown was around 44 wrestlers on each brand. But now in 2025, on Monday Night Raw, we currently have 52 active wrestlers, and we have 53 on SmackDown. Now, in fairness, talents are given more time off now, right? We see, each wrestler probably get a month or so off a year. Well, not every wrestler, but the majority of them. We've seen names such as Sami Zayn miss WrestleMania purely to give them some time off. And throughout the year, we are seeing this with a lot more talents. They are given more time off the road, which is a fantastic thing, but also means more roster rotation as well. But there is a bigger issue, and that bigger issue is back in 2019, Monday Night Raw was 3 hours, meanwhile Friday Night SmackDown was 2 hours. Now you might be thinking to yourself, but wait Ben, Monday Night Raw is currently 2.5 hours and SmackDown is 3 hours. That's more time than in 2019, and you would be correct until late May according to reports, when SmackDown is reportedly going back to 2 hours, meaning that they are actually going to be having 30 minutes less time per week on WWE main roster television compared to 2019, despite having nearly 10 more stars on each roster, and that's before call-ups in this year's draft. Because the NXT roster right now is undoubtedly stacked. Let's ignore Evolve, let's ignore LFG, let's ignore WWE, ID, and even the Performance Center talents who haven't made their debuts yet. And even with that, there is currently 68 active wrestlers on the NXT roster. And if you include, like I just mentioned, the PC, the ID, all those talents, you are way over 100. So there just very simply isn't the space on the main roster to call up stars like a Trick Williams, an Obafemi, eventually a Javon Evans, not to mention NXT's absolutely incredibly stacked women's division. I mean, from Jordan Grace to Stephanie Vaquer to Julia to Roxanne Perez, and pretty much they're all ready to be called up. But if you were thinking about calling somebody up, it immediately brings up the question, whose time are they going to take? Because it's not like they get more time, they're going to have to take somebody else's time. And last year we saw with talents such as Carmelo Hayes that they didn't really get the on-screen time that we expected them to get. Now yes, Melo still has that on-screen time, of course he won the Andre the Giant Battle Royale, but we expected him, after being, like a round 1 draft pick, to be a major deal, and he has kind of just been presented as a lower mid-carder. But that's not to mention people like Baron Corbin, Dijak, and Blair Davenport, who were all called up in last year's draft, and none of them were given the opportunity really on the main roster to do anything. They didn't even get a chance because of the times. Or lack of time, I should say, and it was the exact same the year before too, with talent such as Cameron Grimes, who had so much potential, not even getting a chance. Additionally, we currently have people on the main roster, such as Akari Cross, Apollo Crews, the list continues, who deserve more time than they are currently getting. Dragon Lee is another one, and yet they're just not really being utilized to that ability because, again, there isn't time for it. And in addition, over the last couple of months, WWE have signed and sent straight to the main roster wrestlers like Penta, Rey Fenix, and now Aleister Black and Rusev as well. And I mean, Andrade was brought back pretty much the same way last year, and now he can't even get on WWE TV either. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, WWE did acquire Mexican promotion Lucha Libre Triple R, so perhaps you could send a couple of wrestlers there, and that would create a few more opportunities. But you can't just stack that roster with like rejects from WWE. It wouldn't really work. Trust me, because they tried it themselves before WWE even bought them, and it failed. My fear is ultimately that talents aren't going to be given the opportunity to shine. They aren't going to be given the opportunity to develop on main roster television. Because let's be real for a second. Talents like a John Cena, Steve Austin, The Rock, all of them had pretty bad starts to life on WWE's main roster, but were given the opportunity to grow on screen in front of our eyes, and because of that they developed and they became the absolute megastars that they did become. But if those three names were on WWE's roster today, would they have even been given the luxury to allow them to develop? Truthfully, I don't think so. I think they would have been released. And now, don't get me wrong, don't get my words twisted. More jobs in professional wrestling is undoubtedly a good thing. But if we look historically, even if we look in recent years, the one thing which every wrestler wants, well, nearly every wrestler wants, is to be utilized correctly. To many, that does matter a bit more than money in most cases, when you still can earn a lot of money elsewhere. And then if the locker room morale starts to go, well, it will infect a lot of the rest of the locker room as well, and the locker room morale as a whole will decline. Now, Bayley recently had an interview on Chris Van Vliet's show where she discussed the fact that she was left off WrestleMania. Well, she teased it, sorry, because it wasn't even official at this point. But she was talking about how at times, because she is such a loyal soldier to WWE, she kind of feels like they don't give her the chances she would get if she was storming down the door a lot more. And if people who are as loyal to the company as Bayley aren't getting those opportunities, well, it is bad news. And this all leads to the question, is there now demand for a third brand? Now, I know people call NXT a third brand, but let's face it, it is still very clearly a developmental. Yes, it might be at the top of WWE's developmental pyramid, but it is still a developmental brand. So whether or not WWE end up creating a third main roster brand, I do think it comes down to whether or not there is demand from the fans for that. But personally, if that demand is there, I would rather fans went to go and watch another promotion, maybe a TNA, an AEW, New Japan even, or maybe even another promotion which is yet to get started, or something like that. Purely because I do think competition from outside WWE is absolutely vital to the overall health of the professional wrestling industry. It keeps WWE on their toes, plus it means that if you get released from WWE, it is not the be-all and end-all as well. But I do think it is becoming more and more clear that WWE's plan is to control professional wrestling. And yes, they already have a very good grip on it, but I mean completely control it. I do think as time goes on, if you are a wrestling company who is not WWE, you will be either owned by WWE or you will be an affiliate of WWE, like a lot of these ID companies are. And if you choose to not be with them, then they will be against you and will do everything to try and crush you. Listen, it's good business, I get that. But from the professional wrestling industry and the landscape as a whole, I do not think that is a good thing at all. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you did enjoy this different style of video, please let me know in the comments as well, and leave a like and subscribe. Here at Wrestling Republic, we create between 5 to 10 free videos every single week, and in addition to that, we have a live daily stream every single day at 8 PM UK, 3 PM Eastern, 12 PM Pacific. I hope to see you guys there. Thank you so much for watching. Peace!